Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I'm your host, Adam Porteous, and I'm joined by sweet Sandra Kovacs from the internet.
That lady who was the witch is very good in this movie.
And, of course, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and I, too, have shown up to something so late people didn't care anymore.
Oh, man, when the party's almost over and you show up, they're just like, we're shutting it down. Could you please leave now? We're sweeping up. All the chairs are on top of the tables. We're trying to leave, and you're in here going, can I get an order? No, you can't. You got to leave now.
I'm the guy that gets to the club 20 minutes after last call.
And we've asked, we've asked, and we're like, you know what? Let's check out New Mutants. It had a very short theatrical run. I don't know how much money it made theatrically. Probably not a ton. But they were like, hey, let's go ahead and eventually put it out on VOD, but it's had an even longer journey. As long as that journey was from its time in the theater until now, it was even longer before then. We'll get into a little bit of that as things go on.
46.2 million worldwide gross.
All right.
That's a lot more than I thought.
Yeah, that's pretty decent, actually, all things considered. And we'll talk about what needs to be considered when talking about this film. Before we do that, though, we do want to say a giant thank you to everyone who helped support this show over at patreon.com/HMP. There you get pre-show, post-show, and, of course, the Dinger Zone. And speaking of things like New Mutants, which is what we're talking about today, we talk a little bit about the possibility of I can't come up with words. The possibility of what lies ahead for theaters in the future. So if you'd like to check that out and help support this program, head on over to patreon.com/HMP today. We appreciate it. And we appreciate all of you fine people for helping out this program. Also, before we get to our comic book connection, getting into the whole thing here and everything, we do want to say a big thank you over to the people at Manscaped. If you go to manscaped.com, shop around, use the promo code HMP, you get 20% off your order and free shipping. And it's holiday time, people. It's gift-giving time. And this is what I want to talk about this week with this ad. As guys, we know that there are certain gifts that you're not supposed to, or at least if you're smart, not supposed to get your lady for the holidays. Certain things that you should avoid, and because, if you're smart, you buy her good stuff. Don't say, hey, look, I bought you a vacuum cleaner. Even though she might need that vacuum cleaner, she might want that vacuum cleaner. You do best not to get that vacuum cleaner for Christmas. Buy something else. Don't make something that has to work. The best part is, though, is that, guys, we're the exact opposite of that. You don't have to worry about that kind of stupid stuff with us. We don't care. To me, this month, I'm saying this one's for the ladies. Ladies, if you want to get your guy into shape here and everything, as guys, we take this kind of criticism quite well. At least most of us do, I think. If you got that, you would go, hey, check it out.
I think it'd be a perfect Secret Santa gift for a guy.
Oh, man. I didn't even think about the Secret Santa area here. Even if, you don't have to repeat it. Like, you don't have to show them who it is at the end. This
for me, but they want me to be ready for business.
Yeah. Now, okay, so if you receive that as a Secret Santa, let's just say this is single days for you. You receive that as a Secret Santa. Is that kind of like, hey, there's somebody out here who's interested in me, or maybe someone around the workplace thinks I need to, freshen myself up a bit?
Sometimes you just take a look at somebody and they could use a Lawnmower 3.0. Waterproof, 90-minute battery life, ceramic blade so it doesn't nick where you don't want it to nick. And it's a good gift.
And there's a lot of other stuff as well.
Let's say that you're going to be doing a nude scene with Rosario Dawson.
Oh, dreams.
You want to be ready for it. You don't want downstairs to look like you're a hobo. So this is the perfect gift for that. If you're getting ready to do a nude scene with Rosario Dawson, make it pretty.
For me, I do hope there's a little CGI budget for the abs, but I can handle the trimming.
Yeah, I was like,
Lawnmower 3.0.
If you don't want to be wearing one of those suits that have the little checkerboards on it so they can, CGI your disgustingness so you can match up with Rosario, that use that then. But until you got that CGI equivalent, how about you go on down to manscaped.com, use the promo code HMP, and it's not just a lawnmower. They got everything from underpants to all kinds of gels and soothing balms and all that kind of good stuff that helps you feel fresh and your best. So check it out, everybody, manscaped.com.
They have a toner that I've used, and I got to say, more tone down there.
Oh, so toned. So he's like watching a fitness video from the 80s down there. So manscaped.com, use the promo code HMP. You'd be helping out this show a whole bunch when you do that. Thank you guys so much. Let's get into it. Here is the trailer for The New Mutants.
What's the last thing you remember, Danny? He said we had to run. The reason you survived is because you're a very uncommon girl. You're not alone. Not anymore. Do you know what mutants are? Would anyone like to share their first time? Rain?
I was 13. I thought it was a dream. I just lost control.
Sam?
I started panicking. People got hurt.
Roberto?
My girlfriend, I burned her.
Ileana?
I killed 18 men, one by one. This isn't a hospital, it's a cage.
It's important we find out your power so we can help you get better.
I saw something I don't think she wanted me to see. I don't think we're here to get better.
This place takes your greatest fear and makes you live through it until it kills you.
Who's there? We can get out of this together.
Alrighty, that was the trailer for The New Mutants. It is out on video on demand right now. Well, you know what time it is.
Comic book connection.
Bruce, this here's a comic book, no?
Well, The New Mutants is an X-Men spinoff that actually first appeared in an OGN, an original graphic novel. Yes, in 1982, Marvel graphic novel number 4 was New Mutants, written by relative newcomer, a failed actor named Chris Claremont, and drawn by Bob the Highlander McLeod. Yes, kids, the same Bob McLeod whose name was initially misspelled in the credits for the 2020 film, The New Mutants. I mean, when you rush a film into the theaters, you don't have time to do things like proofread the spelling of one of the creators of the flapjacking characters your movie's based on. But this segment isn't about the movie. This segment is about the graphic novel that started the slow, oh so slow, march of story from page to screen. The OGN is the story of pubescent kids discovering they have superpowers. And man, that premise sounds so creepy now. It was hard for me to type it. It made more sense when I was like 12 and reading the comics. But the story does make the interplay between the awkward most stage in life and discovering oneself a significant plot point. Wow, I have to think about puberty for a lousy comic book connection. I never should have done that. Well, anyway, like I said before, yuck. But anyway, Moira McTaggart saved Wolfsbane from a murderous reverend, and that sets off a domino chain of events that lead to Professor X traveling across the globe in order to assemble a group of mutants that are new, who are in turn cleverly known as the New Mutants. Sometimes the name is just absolutely on the nose, and sometimes the name is the Redford administration, but I digress. The original crew of the New Mutants are the aforementioned Wolfsbane, a Scottish lass with the mutant power of lycanthropy, Sunspot, a Brazilianaire with the ability to absorb and channel solar energy, Danny Moonstar, a member of the Cheyenne Nation with the ability to create illusions of someone's worst fears, Cannonball, a 16-year-old from Kentucky, which is to say he already smokes and has been divorced at least once, and he has the power to fly around like a cannonball. And then there's Karma, a Vietnamese teen girl with the ability to mentally possess other people's bodies. Notably absent from the original comic line is Ilyana Rasputin, aka Magic. She wouldn't join the team until 2 years later in 1984, filling a vacancy left by the apparent death of Karma. Another comic character worthy of discussion is Dr. Cecilia Reyes, a Puerto Rican woman raised in the Bronx who went to medical school on account of seeing her father gunned down before her eyes in her youth. And I am darn glad my decision was far less dramatic than that. Now, she had no interest in becoming a superhero, but was sort of forced into it in the events of the 1997 storyline, Operation Zero Tolerance. I also think that's what Indiana University called the last couple of years on Bobby Knight's contract. I'll have to look into that. But her superpower is that she's a trauma surgeon, and her mutant ability is creating force fields. So she's sort of like Sue Storm, only you can see her. So I guess you could call her Visible Girl, or probably more appropriately, the Visible Woman. But Dr. Reyes has been held in a mutant concentration camp. She's helped rescue and treat earthquake victims. And in 2012, she helped secure North Star's wedding to the man he loves. But Dr. Reyes has never, so far as I know, trapped and experimented on young mutants for the benefit of Mr. Sinister. But what do I know about comics, right? Anyway, the New Mutants are a team that tried to pull the X-Men back to their teenage roots and were a lot of fun. Eventually, Rob and Fabian, and no, I'm not talking about the world's greatest lip-syncing duo, Milli Vanilli, but Liefeld and Nicieza, one of whom I've hung out with. Well, I also did happen to walk past Milli Vanilli in the Lexington Mall back in 1980-something, but I'm talking about Fabian Nicieza when I say one of whom I've hung out with. And where was I going with this? Oh, yeah. After Deadpool became a thing, the New Mutants became the X-Force, or at least the New Mutants comic became the X-Force comic. So there you have it, kids. New Mutants.
So this movie has been it's gone through, let's call it a struggle to try to get made here. Half our cast, I think, now are in retirement homes, which is interesting.
And let's be clear, it wasn't a struggle to get made, it was a struggle to get released.
Well, that's true. Well, some of it was to get made as well. I mean, they initially, after they shot this, they brought it to a test audience, and word was, this is what they told everybody. They're like, listen, we did a test screening. People loved it. People thought it was really good. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to lean, this is what they said at least, we're going to lean more towards the kind of horror element and stuff. This is going to be like the first like super scary, Marvel movie, superhero movie that's super scary and all that kind of good stuff. And the first trailer that we got certainly hinted towards it being a much darker and scary thing. I don't know that we actually got that, but we kept getting delayed, and they were like, oh, well, we just need to do a little bit more. We need to do something else. And it just kind of getting pushed back, and then pandemic happens. And then it was just like, well, all right, we'll push it back again. Then they kind of was like, okay, we'll release it into theaters. The few that are out there, so few theaters were actually opened, but they did. And I actually went to see it in the theater. I think I was one of maybe 3 people in that theater that's seated probably 150 people. It was quite sparse.
Only 3 in the theater, and yet somebody still insisted on sitting right next to you, right, Adam?
Dude, that is normally the MO. Like, there's some things I don't like a lot. Pretty much most of the things that happen with this pandemic, but having rules where people can't sit next to me has really kind of like brightened my day a little. It's kind of, hey, listen, oh no, look, this is pandemic stuff. You get away from me. I'm doing it to stay healthy and everything. Not the fact that I don't like any of you, but however I can frame it.
So Josh Boone directed this.
And wrote it.
Yes. And Josh Boone, I guess you'd say at the time, at least, he was best known for The Fault in Our Stars, the movie version, not the book.
Yeah, which I enjoyed. I thought that was a pretty decent little flick for what it was. I mean, wasn't necessarily the audience for that particular movie, but it was good. I enjoyed it. You got Shailene Woodley there, was really good. The other guy, I forget his name off the top of my head, but I enjoyed that film.
I've read a few interviews with Josh Boone, kind of like after the fact interviews, talking about this movie. And one of the things he did say was like the initial cut that was screened as well as Deadpool. So I don't know exactly what was going on there, but it was a kind of situation where Fox or not Fox. Was it Fox? Who made this? It was Fox.
Fox.
Yeah.
Fox wanted a young adult superhero movie. That's part of why they brought in Josh Boone wanted to do his idea for a New Mutant story, right? Like he had his idea that he wanted to do. But then Simon Kinberg and Fox were like, oh, this is the guy from The Fault in Our Stars. These are teenage characters. How about we try to capture a different audience and make this YA? So it wasn't so much his idea to make this YA movie, but that's kind of what the studio was leaning into. And his idea all along was to bring a little bit of horror into it. At least that's what he says now. I think he had said at one point, like a direct quote was he wanted it to be kind of like John Hughes meets Stephen King. So he wanted a little bit of like the old school kind of YA, not like what we call YA for movies and books and stuff now. But he also always wanted to have that horror element into it. And they were against that until a movie called It made a ton of money. And then all of a sudden they were into it. And from his description, there really wasn't any actual change that happened in the movie, but there was a lot of changes in how the trailer was edited and produced. And there were always these ideas of we're going to do reshoots, but they never materialized according to him. Like he basically says that there weren't even pickups. Like this movie didn't even get pickups, much less reshoots. Because, you got a bunch of people working on other stuff. You got people working on, season 2 and then again, season 3 of Stranger Things. You got somebody wrapping up Game of Thrones. I'm sure that Anya Joy Taylor has plenty of work going her way too. So they couldn't like get everybody's schedule. And then by the time the schedules did line up, it's like they took one look and like, well, no, these do not look like the people that are in this movie at this point. So we're not going to do these reshoots. But
so I got to ask you, Adam, because I remember when you went and saw this movie, you had said, it's not bad. It's not bad. And then when it was brought up that we were going to see this movie, you were like, oh, I have no problem seeing this movie again. So how do you feel about the movie having seen it twice?
It's just okay. Like, I think I feel close to the same, to where I think the biggest problem ultimately was it really kind of getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. And the thought process is when that happens is usually something's not done. Something's not quite right. There's still a problem that is somewhere in the works. And when you watch this movie, it's like, I feel like there certainly is that problem. I don't know 100%. I still don't know 100% how you would fix that problem. I don't know how you solve that within this movie itself.
I think I've got the solution, but keep going.
But for me, it was just like, okay, I see what they were kind of going for here. I think it was fine for what they were trying to do, but it's a lack of cohesion, I think, overall, and really knowing where things are going to go and how they're going to be used. And it also feels like, at least to me, that they were, like everything else, hoping that this would become something. And obviously with the purchase of Fox by Disney, really put the kibosh on all of that. So that's not going to happen. So you do have that also working against it, not in its favor, in that it's just going to kind of disappear on you and it's never going to go anywhere past here. Good thing and bad thing, I guess, if you want to think about it that way.
Yeah, I agree. When I saw this, I was hoping that one of two things would happen. Either one, this would be like a hidden gem of a movie. Sometimes that happens. It's not that, or that it would be so bad that it's like, oh my God, like I can't wait to bag on this movie, and it's not that either.
Yeah,
it's. I know I bring this up all the time, but it's just okay. I'm going to forget that I even saw this movie 2 days from now. It's one of those movies. And it's kind of a shame because there are some really good performances in this movie. I think that Anya Taylor-Joy is your secret weapon. She is amazing in this movie. She's amazing in everything she does. And when you look at just the breadth and body of her work, she plays so vastly different characters that she's going to, like, she would never take a hit on this anyway, just because she's already been in so many things that are good.
Yeah.
But the fact that she is the bright spot in this movie, she's very, very good in this. And that was your secret weapon, and you didn't realize it at the time. because when they made this movie, Maisie Williams is a big, like, you know, a pretty big name at that point. And you got Charlie Heaton from Stranger Things. So,
Which
like,
by
you
the time they
have-
were filming this was just gigantic. You couldn't have gotten
Right,
bigger
yeah.
at that time.
Yeah, I mean, those two, Charlie Heaton and Maisie Williams, would have been enough to open this if it had actually opened on schedule.
Right. And you know, I think that I think Charlie Heaton is a good actor at what he does, you know, like his style, like what he is. Like, he can't really work out of his strike zone, really.
He's
But
playing a lot of the same type of character for the
right.
most part.
You
I
know,
mean, he's
he
good
looks
at
his
it,
shoes
but-
an awful lot.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, that isn't who Sam is. You know, Sam Guthrie is not that character to me.
Yeah.
The version of Sam Guthrie that I read when I used to read X-Men comics did not behave like that at all.
He's kind of the life of the party.
Yes.
Uh,
And so so you have a couple of characters. I have a couple of faults, fairly big faults with this movie too.
The faults in our New Mutant stars.
That's right. One of which is that you have a superhero team here that is equal parts girls and boys, because I'm going to call them girls and boys because they're still kids.
Yeah.
They're youngins.
In this movie, even if the actors aren't, they're playing kids in this movie. And I always have a problem, especially these days, because, you know, I'm like the angry middle-aged man on his lawn, like, stop doing this. You've got to stop sexualizing girls who are playing like
Yes.
high school age. And this movie does it a lot. And I find it terrible because this movie is aimed towards teenagers. And so it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I get it that you're trying to do a horror movie kind of thing. So you've got to have a little bit of that like cheesecake factor, but you can't do both things. You can't have it be a female empowering movie and then also have it be like, oh, but look at her butt.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. That's one of the big problems with this movie.
I think a big problem I had with it is I feel like there's a lot of work on character and setting and excellent acting, as you've already said. I agree with all that, but there's no story.
Right.
And I think there was so much confidence, or at least so much assumption, that this was going to be a trilogy, that they're like holding back on the story for movies 2 and 3. I mean, he put together a storyboard for a trilogy, which is kind of cool. He did it with one of his friends from childhood, and they took old New Mutants comics, cut out panels from the comics, and made storyboards from the actual comic book panels to pitch their trilogy there. And I feel like this was all like establishing the characters, the setting, their environment, and the story was going to start in movie 2. But you just can't hold back, man. If you don't have a good movie 1, there is no movie 2.
It's true.
Yeah, that seems to be a lot of the problem with kind of current new stuff that is like this. They get into that mindset of like, that would be perfect if they were like a guaranteed 3-picture deal. Like when Peter Jackson started doing Lord of the Rings and the first one came out, and before I'd even really saw it or anything, my thought was, I was just like, man, how horrible would this be if this movie is just straight awful? They've made 2 other films and they're going to release them and they're just going to be awful too. Turns out they were some of the greatest movies of all time, and I really, really love them. So
at least it wasn't the second and third Matrix movie.
You're exactly.
We have gone down that pathway.
Yeah.
Or when you say that you're going to have 5 movies in your movie franchise and your first one fails miserably, like the Power Rangers movie.
Oh yeah.
Well, I don't know. Well, see, that one didn't do too horrible overall, I think they did.
Is there anybody who was like, man, I can't wait to see the next one?
Honestly,
I don't know if I would say I can't wait to see it, but I probably left Power Rangers more open-minded for a sequel than I left this
I liked
movie.
it. I thought there should be a sequel
Yeah,
to it. I thought
I
it
thought
was
it was
fun
dumb
enough.
fun.
Yeah, it's not
One
like
of those you keep your budget down. It's going to do just fine. It could
I
have been
hated
like
that
Resident
movie
Evil.
so much. I hated it so much.
well, Bruce and I do like garbage, so
Yeah. But with this one though, it's like they didn't really invest properly story-wise in a villain. I feel like it's almost kind of confusing. Like, who is the villain here? I don't know. You can always go back and try to do your fan fiction to make it up. make it a little bit better. But I think we needed a more consistent villain kind of character here, because you could say, is the villain Dr. Reyes? Sort of. Is the villain just Danny Moonstar's inability to control her powers? Sort of. Or is the villain just the Demon Bear? And, you know, the Demon Bear is a comic book character, and they could have made the Demon Bear like a better through line villain. They're also dropping these hints of Mr. Sinister. You know, maybe you have Dr. Essex actually be in the hospital, and then he converts to Mr. Sinister and they fight him at the end. I think that was how the third movie maybe was supposed to go down, but they just really lacked in story here. That's my biggest bummer of it. Like, there's nothing offensively bad to me other than what you've already talked about, Sean. Maybe, you know, because Josh Boone is sort of doing his YA thing where honestly the relationship between Rain and Danny is portrayed innocently enough that I think it actually is a healthy depiction there, but there's a lot of stuff around it. You don't need them ogling each other in the shower and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's the part that bothered me.
That, I think you're dead on, Bruce, because you're right. Those are two separate things for sure. I did buy the relationship between those two because like it felt natural. It felt like it was supposed to, like something that could actually happen. And the other one, it was. And Sean's right on that end. It felt exploitative, and it's just like you felt dirty. You felt dirty watching it.
I think when they were filming this, the actors involved were like 21 and 19. So make the characters that age if you're going to do that.
Yes.
Even though Maisie Williams, bless her heart, she'll never look her age until she's really old.
Are you kidding?
Like, she has that baby face.
But she's 40 years old right now.
But at the same time too, she's also young grandma. You know, she looks like a grandma who's also 20 years old.
I just know for people that have seen the last season of Game of Thrones, there was like a collective gasp of shock when she was in a more grown-up scene in that show. So people
at the same time,
for her.
you have to think about it. It's just like, what was she on that show when it started? 13, 12?
No, she was like 11 or something.
My God. So, yeah.
She looked very childish when it started. You could have convinced me she was 9 when it started.
Yeah.
She's probably 17 and looked 9. I don't know.
But that was super strange. Again, we'll be jumping all around this for people in the show, little spoilers here and everything. But you mentioned
you have to jump around here because there's not a real good through line to follow talking about it.
One thing that I was impressed about when it got down to it was that the big evil spirit bear at the end of the movie. That was real. That was done quite well. I was shocked at how decent that was.
It looks good, but there's no tension to that.
No,
it's not scary.
I just meant from a technological standpoint, really. It was like, oh, this doesn't look like it was cheap and crappy or nothing like that. It looked like it was done quite well. You're right though, in as much as you don't feel scared. There's no real tension to it because A, it's a big CGI monster, and B, we haven't been invested enough in a story to where we truly care about anything that goes on, so who cares?
Well, this movie also suffers from the fact that they clearly wanted to make more. And so, you have the hints to Mr. Sinister here. Just show me Mr. Sinister. Instead, what you have is a movie where the bad guy is the main character. And you have the Suicide Squad problem where like, oh, hey, we're here to stop evil. By the way, that a member of our team is the greatest evil of all.
Well, you know that originally when they still had their assumption of a trilogy, John Hamm was going to be Mr. Sinister in the credit scene.
That's wonderful.
With his blue lipstick and everything.
Well, yeah, who knows? Who knows how he would have looked?
That's always what I'm afraid with like people like Mr. Sinister is when they come to the big screen, what are they going to look like? Because like we were at a time, in like the late 90s and early 2000s where we took kind of a very anti-comic book sort of vibe to how we did our comic book movies. It needed to kind of look real and gritty and all that stuff. And we've really kind of gone towards the more comic booky route over the last, 20 years of comic book films. I don't know where a character like Mr. Sinister would fall into that category because, man, you can go either way real bad with it.
And it depends on the creators making the show, the creatives making the show. Yeah. Because I don't know about you guys. I don't trust Simon Kinberg to make the right decision for anything.
No, but I would probably give Josh Boone the benefit of the doubt. I mean, he's clearly a fan, and that goes a long way with me when you're a comic book fan, and he's an accomplished filmmaker. So I think he could have found the right balance with Mr. Sinister. But then again, how much of it would have been left to him to do. That's always a question with some of these franchise movies. You never know who has the in control over some of this.
And at least from like a visual standpoint, like if Mr. Sinister showed up in this, like wouldn't that feel like it, upset the apple cart for the tone of the entire film?
Well, I mean, you want to do the thing that something like, to name check it again, that The Mandalorian does routinely now, where you want to have that moment where your audience goes, "Oh my God," when when they're watching it. Mr. Sinister is that character to me. I love Mr. Sinister.
Yeah, I think it would have been great. You needed something there. And I mean, they've already, as far as the tone of this movie, they've already peppered in Essex Corp all through it. So that's where it's got to go. So even if you have to decide what tone of Mr. Sinister meets this movie to never reveal Mr. Sinister, well, then you don't need to have this Essex Corp stuff in.
Did you think that he was going to show up when you saw it?
Who, me?
Yeah.
No, I kind of didn't know what to think. I mean, I'd heard people didn't like the movie, so I assumed he probably didn't show up.
Right.
Or if he did show up, you'd probably hear about it going like, "Sweet Jesus, look at this."
And I mean, you see enough about the cast, and I can understand before August 28th when it was released theatrically, maybe they would have kept a lid on some of the cast, but there's no way it goes from August to now and there's a surprise big name cast member. So I didn't really expect
you are right.
And it's Jean-Claude Van Damme as Mr. Sinister.
Hey, I'd be down for that.
Which one's going to show up? I hope it's latter day. I know that I seem to do this only with X-Men movies, which is weird, but I got to break this down here where, my enjoyment of this movie is not great, but I do like it more than a lot of the other X-Men movies. Like I like it. I like it far more than I like the last two we got.
Yeah.
I like it better than Apocalypse, and I like it better than the Dark Phoenix thing.
I think I need to watch Apocalypse again because I keep thinking that I like it better than other people do, but maybe I don't. Maybe I need to watch it again and hate it like everybody else.
As much as I love Oscar Isaacs, it's like what's the worst choice that you could have made for that role? and he's it. And I love that guy a lot. But man, oh man, is he wrong for that? It's like I've never, in all of the years of X-Men between comics and cartoons and all that stuff, I never thought Apocalypse would be like 5'4".
Well, I know that I really, really liked, I can't remember her first name. Her last name, I think, was Ship, that played Storm.
Right.
I thought she was excellent casting, a version of Storm that we hadn't seen before.
Mm-hmm.
I liked that. I liked the time period that it was set in. And initially, like, this movie got punished a little bit for the stink that Apocalypse had on it, because Storm was supposed to make an appearance in this movie. Alexandra Ship, I just looked up her name. Alexandra Ship was supposed to show up in this movie. And because of Apocalypse, I guess they're like, oh, Apocalypse was bad. She must have been the problem, so we're not going to let her show up in this movie.
They just don't get it. It doesn't matter if they were in a bad movie if the person was good.
And this movie was originally supposed to be set in 1986, and then they moved it to 2016 for the setting. And Josh Boone was like, yeah, whatever. I mean, it's all in a mental hospital where they're isolated from the world. It could be any year you want. It's not going to change it. But just because they didn't want it to be as closely linked to Age of Apocalypse, so they changed the year that it happens. But you could have told me this happened in 86, and other than Buffy the Vampire Slayer in the background, I would have believed it.
Yeah, and I think that's also one of the problems that this movie has, is that it doesn't feel like there's a world outside of the walls of this, institution that they're in. It feels very granular and just, you're here and that's it. There's nothing that's really outside of these. We might mention a thing or two, but we're not going to delve into them any more than just a passing glance.
For a couple of reasons, I was expecting like a Shutter Island twist, because this does seem like this imaginary world. It's detached from everything. Can I spoil Shutter Island talking about this movie? I don't know if I should just shut up now.
I mean, I've seen it.
For a 20-year-old movie,
it's not that old.
But, with Danny Moonstone's powers, we know mutants are involved. We know that maybe the Hellfire Club's involved. Maybe some other telepath is involved. We don't know what's going on, but I fully expected at the end Danny to open her eyes and she's in like this white room with other people with electrodes hooked up to them. And this was all some weird virtual imagining, and she looks around and sees her fellow inmates strapped down, and that's the end of the movie. Like, if you're going full on horror, you kind of give it an ending like that, and then you're really fired up for movie 2. How's she going to get them all out of this? but that never happened.
Yeah, and that's like kind of the almost a weird vibe that I got when you saw like some of those like the early teaser trailers or whatever, at least from what my memory recalls, is that like you kind of, I at least in my head remember them kind of being around like, chained down to a bed sort of thing. And like, because it was so many like quick shots and stuff like that. But it never really materialized. And this movie didn't feel like in any way that it was trying to reach towards a more, horrific elements or anything else like that, save for, obviously the end, but that's just a big giant CGI monster that we got those dime a dozen these days.
And not to ring this bell again, but we just saw The Thing, and The Thing gets it right. Where like, look, we're stuck in this place. Let's make it claustrophobic. This movie doesn't feel claustrophobic at all. It looks like there's like they keep finding new rooms.
Yes.
Oh, there's a pool here too.
Oh, let's go to the upstairs basketball court and hang out.
Right.
There's so many areas. It's just like, oh, there's like 10 of you here. Like you should all just have your own space and everybody just gets to stretch out.
And what a great haunted house movie you could make in an abandoned mental institution, because I think that's what this is an abandoned mental institution. And you could make a great haunted house movie, and they only kind of do that, and then they shy away from it. But, you got those creepy guys with no eyes wearing the smiley face masks. I mean, you really could have done some good haunted house stuff, but they kind of they like just halfway did it and dropped the ball, or they couldn't lean into it 100% before they changed gears.
No half measures, Walt.
Yeah. Don't half butt two things when you could whole butt one thing.
Oh, I whole butted all the way, boy.
What do you guys think about Dr. Reyes here?
I
don't know why
I think they made the same mistake with this character that they make with the movie, is that you want this person to feel like what the movie, what the people making the movie want you to think is that this person is on their side. She's trying to help, but then it turns out that she's working for very bad people. She might have good intentions, but she's working for very bad people, and they have to take her out. But what it comes off as is this lady is a very nice lady, and she is trying to kill this girl because she was told to, but she really kind of doesn't want to, and so the kids end up killing her almost by mistake. Like that's what it feels like.
And it just, to me, it felt a little Goyer-esque to have her be Dr. Reyes, because there are plenty of bad guy mutants or even equivocal mutants they could have put in that role. But like Cecilia Reyes is one of the most like noble, straight-laced characters in the X-Men universe. It's so weird to see her there. And also originally they had Rosario Dawson signed on for this role, and then it fell through before filming began. But boy, that's a very different portrayal, you have to imagine.
Yeah, geez.
But I never felt
this movie more sexy.
I never felt like there's nothing wrong with Alice Braga at all. But I never really felt like she was trustworthy, though. I think that Rosario could have done way better at making us feel like we trust her, so that the betrayal's a little sharper when it happens. I never really felt that with this portrayal.
She always kind of feels like she's hiding something under the surface that she's not telling people.
It's the problem with this character, is that the character is all over the place, and so we're three different people with three different opinions of how she is. I mean, that's not good.
Yeah,
pretty bad. I'll say this though. Check out one of her early works, City of God. Woo! Oh my Lord!
Oh, I like that
Brazilian film that is just like, oh my God, that movie's so hardcore.
It is.
But she's had a lot of good roles in a lot of movies. I think she's fine here. I don't blame the bad. I blame the bad stuff on the script and whatever the heck else is going on here. It's not on her, in my opinion.
No, it really isn't.
Maisie Williams. Let's talk about her for a second. I like her. I'm not a Game of Thrones person. I only watched the first season and a half. But I like her. She's just got like a weird little quirky vibe.
You're inching into Bruce Leslie territory here, where it's like I like Maisie Williams, but I never saw Game of Thrones.
I've at least seen her in a couple of things, so like at least I got that much going for me. I'm not somebody who goes, I've not seen any of their work.
But I like them.
I like him in the fact that I've seen her in pop culture.
I saw her on a YouTube video, and she seemed very nice.
I think she's solid. I mean, Arya is always one of my favorite characters on Game of Thrones, and she's someone who I think, man, she's going to have this great, wonderful career ahead of her. But I don't know if this whole production has kind of hurt her in some way, because she hasn't really done anything that I'm aware of. When she should have tons of, I mean, the 1-2 punch of a disappointing, and none of these are her fault either. But the 1-2 punch of a very disappointing end to Game of Thrones, along with this being her sort of first big time movie, I think is unfortunately she's been a victim of some stinkeroonies that have been out there.
Well, she's been working a lot even after this movie. I mean, she's in a new series called 2 Weeks to Live. She's in something called The Owners. You know, that's all this year. So she's working. It's just lower profile stuff.
And well, I'm glad that she's, still doing stuff, because she's super talented. And I'd hate for her to get caught off on the stink of a couple of creators that didn't follow their project through, honestly, is what they both feel like. Yeah, I mean, Josh Boone eventually noped out on this so he could go start working on The Stand for, I don't know, CBS All Access or something like that.
I haven't. Have you heard anything about that? I don't know.
Nope.
No.
This would have been the best year for that to have debuted. I mean, I can't think of a better year to debut The Stand, or a worse year, depending on how you look at it.
It is so tough, the idea of plunking down any money for a CBS All Access. That really, it's like, oh, you have all access to what?
You really gotta be a fan of that Picard guy to get that.
I guess.
Well,
so.
if I may, let me tell you, in this house, we get it once a year, because Miss Sweet Chauncey really loves The Good Fight, and once that starts up again, we will have CBS All Access.
Now, who's in that? I haven't yet to hear that.
It's The Good Wife, but the supporting cast.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
It's a really terrific show. I mean, quite honestly.
I heard that Good Wife. Like I never saw an episode, but man, the people that love that show love it.
Because it's a great show, man. Like, it's really well written, well performed. The problem from that show is that there are people on the show who hated each other.
Oh, one of those.
Yeah.
Those are always super fun, where it's like, hey, I get to go to work today and work on with these jerks.
Well, there were two actresses on the show who literally could not work in the same scenes together.
Oh, my word. Yeah. A lot of singles shots in that thing where it's like, all right, we'll like come to you after lunch.
The list of actors who refuse to work with me is really long. So Warlock at one point was supposed to be in this movie. Do you think Warlock makes this movie better?
Remind me of
Warlock.
Warlock.
The people behind it.
Warlock would have been a totally CGI character, I would imagine, Adam, because he's like this non-human alien techno being. I don't know how to describe. Can you describe him better than that, Sean?
He's almost like a cyberpunk robot character who he's like Plastic Man, but a robot.
Yes. Like, I feel like he doesn't actually have a defined physical form. He just has all these odd shapes, and he kind of almost a comic relief character in the comics.
Yeah, he is.
And Sacha Baron Cohen was who Boone really wanted to portray Warlock, so that would have been something, I guess.
I think if Simon Kinberg wasn't behind it, we would have, like, that sounds like a pretty good movie to me. But
they told him to wait till the sequel to bring in Warlock.
Well, if you have Mr. Sinister and Warlock, you're going to have old nerds like just champing at the bit to watch that movie. You know, I if you were to tell me, oh, hey, we're going to make a new Mutants movie, but Lockheed is only in it for like 30 seconds. I would have been like, then why are you making that movie?
Yeah.
It's funny. I was looking. I was like, let me see, because the name Warlock sounded familiar, and I'm like, let me see what this character looks like. And I looked at the character, and I go, I know who drew that character. Bill Sienkiewicz just has that kind of particular way of drawing things where it's like, I got one big eye and one small eye. Shut up. That's how I drew it.
Right.
Yeah.
Who we haven't talked about at all with this movie is Blue Hunt, and she's the main character of the movie. So what did you guys think of her in this? Did you like her?
I wanted to like her so much. I was looking for stuff to glom onto, and I just don't think the character was written super well.
Yeah, I think I'm with Adam on this. I think pretty much what he says is what I'm feeling. Like, I couldn't tell you why there wasn't anything I disliked about her, but I couldn't tell you I knew very much more about that character at the end of the movie than I did at the beginning.
It was very just kind of standard. Like, it feels like that's the role that you write, and then you'll fill in kind of the character bits later. You're just trying to spit out something on the page. But they never really went back to go, okay, now where do we give her things to want, things to need, and all that kind of good stuff.
I think it's such a problem because it's, like she hasn't done a whole lot, and she's the main character of this movie. And then in the same room, you have Anya Taylor-Joy just stealing every second of focus. And I mean, it's not her fault. It's not the actress's fault, but like, you have Anya Taylor-Joy in your movie. Like, she is going to be your big weapon. Why aren't you using her more?
And you've got
That's
her.
all I kept thinking about watching it.
I think they use her plenty, man.
They do, but she's like, she's almost not almost. She is a side dish in this movie instead of the entree, and I think that is a mistake. I think that, and I know that this character doesn't really lend itself to being the main character of the movie. But if that's the case, then you need to get somebody who is just going to destroy it as Danny. I mean, it's the only way that movie's going to work. And
or I guess you write the movie before you cast it, but you can always change things. You could change the gears of this movie. I mean, in a lot of ways, instead of the demon bear, it could have been something from Limbo that's coming to get him, and that it is Anya Taylor-Joy that carries the movie instead of Danny Moonstar, Blue Hunt.
Man,
I just think that you are doing your movie a disservice because you have this amazing actress, and I don't know if they even knew how great she was when they cast her. I'm going to guess they did because they probably saw The Witch and they probably saw Split.
Yeah, I think you don't cast somebody because you think they're so, do you? I mean, I don't know. What do I know about this kind of stuff?
No, you're right. You're right. But she also has that thing where she looks like she has some alien DNA in her.
I was wondering whether to say anything because I get chided a lot and rightfully so many times. But she has you're right. She's a pretty girl, but she has a very interesting look that I think drives me to like her as an actress because she does look. She's got an interesting look about her. That's all I'll say. But
she doesn't look like a pretty dummy.
What do you guys think about the characterization of Ileana, though? Like, I thought they made her just a little too mean or something. For me, I didn't like the fact she had to be
I agree with you. And she's much sweeter in the books as she would be. But man, she's just like, this is the perfect character for this movie. It's not the character from the books,
Yeah.
And that wig drove me up the wall.
Oh, really?
I just, like, the whole time I'm going, is it a wig? Do we know? I mean, I know she's wearing a wig, but, like, in the world of this movie, is she wearing a wig? Is that supposed to be her hair? At one point, she goes swimming, so I guess we're all supposed to assume that that's her hair, but that ain't her hair.
Is this all B stories with no A story?
Boy, it sure feels like it.
Like, if they had leaned into the conflict and its resolution a little harder between Danny and Ileana, then I could have accepted the way they portray her, but that's not the central part of the movie. If they'd made the central part of the movie the relationship between Rain and Danny, then I think they could have made this better, but that's not the central part of the movie. If they'd made the central part of the movie cracking the secret behind Dr. Reyes and the institution, that would have been fine. If they'd made the central part of the movie the understanding that Demon Bear is who killed her parents, and now it's coming for her, and they're worried about that, and there's building tension, that would have worked. But there's not a through line here. And as much as as much as we talk about maybe underutilizing Anya Taylor-Joy here, Sunspot and Cannonball are absolutely like thrown away characters.
They are, but that's because the actors portraying those characters are not doing a great job.
I don't know anything about the guy who portrays Sunspot.
Nor do I. And I mean, based on his performance in this movie, I don't care to know. I was never a huge Sunspot fan, to be honest with you. I thought that the design of the character is neat, but that's about it.
And I do admire the fact that Josh Boone wanted an actor who is Brazilian to play the character, but still, Brazil's a big country, and he didn't quite get the type of Brazilian that would look like what's in the comics. But maybe there are better actors in the country of Brazil, or there are better actors with Brazilian roots. I just didn't really care much for this actor. And maybe he's done stuff I don't know about that's great. I just felt like he really was one of these things are not like the other. When you got him, Maisie Williams, Blue Hunt, Anya Taylor, the Heaton kid, and then you got this guy.
Yeah. Adam, I got to tell you, I got to go backwards for a second. Mm-hmm. You talking about Anya Taylor-Joy's wig reminds me of Matt Gorley. Matt Gorley from, all like a million different podcasts, and I was there too, and like stuff like that.
Yeah.
He has a bit that reoccurs on every single podcast he does where he says, as you guys know, I have perfect wigdar. And so every time he sees a wig in a movie, he's like, that's a wig.
Yeah, and this one's bad. But
the X-Men franchise has a history with bad wigs. I mean, look at Storm from the original trilogy.
It's true.
That's no good. And then the fright wig that Professor X puts on at the end of the fourth film. It seemed fun at the time, but maybe in retrospect, not the best for that character. I will say this though: one you were talking about little lowlights as far as characters go. I almost had like a conniption when Danny's dad is in the beginning of the movie. I'm just like, oh my God, can this guy not act? What's going on here? And it was just bad news. Oh,
You've seen him before,
Yeah.
I'm sure I have.
He was Slipknot in Suicide Squad.
He sure was.
Well, yeah, we all know how well that turned out.
Hey, hold. I haven't seen that one yet. Don't spoil it.
Not good. But
I bought my ticket because Slipknot's my favorite character. Can't wait to go see it.
Did he have a line in that movie?
He said, "Oh crap!"
Yeah, pretty much. I think that may have been the extent of it. Because when he bites it, we're all
don't
like,
"Hit my head! There's a bomb in it."
Is he bad?
Can we talk about how this movie has probably changed how contracts will work forevermore in Hollywood?
How so?
What do you mean?
This movie, there was the contract with both Josh Boone and a couple of the actors that said this had to have a theatrical release.
Oh,
no matter what. I don't think you'll ever see a contract like that again that says something has to have a theatrical release. And Disney had to respect that contract, though they don't have to respect the writers who wrote the novelization of Aliens and Star Wars, but that's a story for another day.
I think you will see that stuff in the future. I
don't think anybody will ever be able to get a contract that says you have to have a theatrical release no matter what.
Oh, I think it'll be rare, but I think that'll still exist. I think there'll be certain people out there that and I think
people. I honestly, after the debacle with this, I think as far as a major studio goes, they're like, oh, well, if you don't want to, if you have to have that in your contract, you'll get somebody else to give you.
Well, here's the thing: they're not going to let Josh Boone do that, but they'll let Christopher Nolan or Quentin Tarantino. They'll let somebody like that do that, but not somebody like Josh Boone.
Yeah, but I think if you got confidence in your product, you don't even need to have that clause.
Yeah, but like, here's the thing: the reason that people we'll take Christopher Nolan for example, because he's an avid supporter of movie theaters and stuff like that. It's not about having the confidence in him per se to do that. It's what he really wants, and if you have someone who can pull in that stuff, they'll give it to those guys. But they're not going to give. You're absolutely correct. In these like $40 to $60 million movies, there's no way that'll be a thing anymore. But I still see it. open for a time. I think saying that that'll never happen again is a little short-sighted, but it's not going to happen nearly as much, though, for sure.
If nothing else, there'll be like a clause that says, hey, if 30% or more of the theaters in the nation are shut down.
Yeah, there'll certainly be
there's going to be a
catastrophe.
There's going to be a catastrophic clause in every kind of contract from now on. Like even when I had to sign a new contract where I work, it had something that they never dreamed they would need, but a pandemic clause. So if this happens again in the future, I don't have the same protections I had in the past.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to forever change contracts in that regard.
Although I can totally see, because there's like maybe 4 filmmakers left who can pull that kind of crap.
Yeah,
like,
it's very few. That's why I say never kind of thing.
Like I can totally see Todd Phillips pulling something like that. You know, Listen, Joker 2 needs to be in movie theaters.
Oh man,
I would agree.
Sure, why not? But I also don't know that they could give all the details, but I think part of it may have been like perhaps let's just say Maisie Williams. I'll pick somebody. She had primarily been a TV actor, and she didn't want this to be a TV project, let's say. And I'm just totally imagining here. I don't have anything to back that up, but some of that might have been along those lines. Like, we got to have a guarantee this is a theatrical release.
That's certainly a thing, because with the Divergent movies, the first one made decent money. Second, and I don't know if I can't remember if there was a third one. But whatever the last one was that they were supposed to do, they were like, well, it's not making enough money in theaters. We're going to do it directly to video. And they didn't want to do that. They were like, pretty much all the actors were just like, this is not what I signed up for. I'd signed on for being in movies. And I think that conversation does go a lot different today, for sure.
But I also think, some of that bias is going to be gone after what we've gone through this.
I believe that's also very true. I think,
I think that they're also going to be very happy to be working.
That stench will be
don't
gone.
put me in garbage like the Mandalorian. I want to be in Solo.
Straight to the top. All right, before we get down to our final review and everything, we do have to ask ourselves one very important question, and is how does this movie relate one-to-one with Sylvester Stallone?
Thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement. Judson Bell is the special effects coordinator on the New Mutants. While watching the movie, if you thought to yourself, wait a second, this movie's special effects look an awful lot like the special effects from the Kevin James movie, The Zookeeper, there's a reason for that. Judson Bell was in charge of the special effects on that movie, too. But don't get me wrong, this isn't an indictment on the man's work. I am not here to bury Judson Bell, but to praise him. He's done some good work on some good things. He's worked on movies like Knives Out, The Equalizer, but those movies don't rely on their special effects. They're good movies, but without the boost of fancy pants computer mumbo jumbo. They're just straight up good movies. We've brought up The Zookeeper a lot on this show, probably more than anyone anywhere has ever talked about The Zookeeper, because Rosario Dawson stars in it. And Rosario Dawson seems to star in everything we review on HMP, and the only thing she's ever worked with Sylvester Stallone on is The Zookeeper. I've never seen it because I don't think Kevin James is funny, but I understand there's people who do. I just don't know them. I've never met them. And there you have it, HMPers and dingalingers. This week's Stallone connection is a guy who makes big computer bears, Judson Bell. Adam and Bruce, this is the 333rd episode of this bit, and still no word from Sylvester Stallone.
Darn it.
At least now we know why that bear looks so much like Kevin James.
A quick story. When I went to see, because we were doing a thing at the Film Find where we were just watching everything, and Paul Blart Mall Cop 2 came out, and it was me and a dad and his son in that movie. They didn't make a peep the entire film until like the little tiny bits that they saw in the trailer. They chuckled at those and then left promptly.
Yeah,
it was so bad.
I've told you my Paul Blart 2 experience when my son looked and said, "Hey, Dad, when's the funny part?"
It ain't anywhere in there, son. Sometimes you just got to hang it up and go home. But before we go home, we do have to get down to our rating system. If you'd like to check out how the Robin rating system works, why don't you check out our Reddit? Links are in the show notes. Bruce, where does New Mutants fall on the Robin rating system for you?
Well, like I said, man, they give us a setting, they give us characters, they give us some performances, some visuals. They just forgot to bring a story. And also it's caught up in just this whole loss of care about anything that Fox did with these characters. You know, it's not going anywhere by the time you see it, or at least by the time I saw it, I knew it wasn't going anywhere. It was like, we just got to finish this last page so we can close the book and start a new book with some Marvel Cinematic Universe mutants in it. Maybe like in 5 to 10 years or something, when it's far enough from the transition, people can go back and see this through different eyes and either think it's so bad it's good, or that it's maybe better than we gave it credit for. I don't know, but I'm not there yet. It's hard for me, despite a few upsides to it, it's hard for me to make this anything other than a Stephanie Brown.
Sean, what you got?
Yeah, it's a Stephanie Brown for me too. You know, as I said earlier, I'm going to forget that I even saw this movie, or at least I'm going to forget everything that was in it. It's not terrible. It's just not good. And, you know, that's a bummer. I either wanted it to be one of the most terrible things I've ever seen, so we can add it to the pantheon of like, this is the worst superhero movie ever, or something where it was a hidden gem where it would be really cool. But it is neither of those things. So it's a Stephanie Brown.
Yeah, I'm going just a low Damian Wayne on this. Very, very close to Stephanie Brown, but just a low Damian Wayne. It is forgettable. It's tough to really recommend this unless you're like kind of a Fox X-Men completist or something like that. But as we said previously, it's I like it more than I like things like Apocalypse. So, you know, if you dug Apocalypse, perhaps you might love this. I don't know.
I like that maybe this is like The Thing and we just don't get it. And in 30 or 40 years, people are going to be talking about how we totally missed the ball on this.
Oh, the feeling of nothingness while you're watching this movie is sublime.
It just drenches over you and makes you feel really, really good.
It's the way that I reached for my phone no less than 7 times while watching this movie.
Apathy
man,
will be
so
all the
good.
rage in the future.
Well, that is it, everybody. That is it for New Mutants this week. Next week, we are jumping in. We're starting to feel a little bit of that holiday spirit. You've been waking up. It's been a little bit brisk outside in the morning and everything, so it's starting to feel a lot like Christmas. And as such, we are going to be talking Lego Star Wars special this week, everybody. We've covered the original Star Wars holiday special. Now we're going to cover the Lego Hollywood Star Wars special. That's a lot of words to put in a sentence, but that's available on Disney Plus right now. So chances are, if you're doing like Mandalorian, you'll have something else to watch for a change. So check that out and join us back here next week for that. In the meantime, Bruce, where might we find more of your work on the internet?
I'm just going to say that the release date of January 15th has been announced for the first episode of WandaVision. So people maybe think about if you'd like a WandaVision 30 questions and look for that.
Let us know. Sean, what else?
January 15th?
That's what they say.
Oh, man, that seems like a really missed opportunity. They should put it like right after The Mandalorian ends.
They're trying to stretch all of it. And initially, that's what it was going to be. But they were like, we think we can push it to January.
I think they want to wait till after the Christmas movie rush.
Man, okay. We can find more of our work at WandaVision 30 questions. We'll be over there.
It might happen. You don't
watching
know.
WandaVision.
And of course, Mandalorian 30 questions. How could we forget that one? It's jumping off over there, everybody, and it's one of the best things that we're doing right now. The show is so much fun to watch, and we have a lot of fun listening to it. So if you do, check it out, Mandalorian 30 questions, wherever you find our podcast. That'll do it, everybody. Join us next week when we're talking Disney, Lego, Star Wars special, holiday special. Too many words in that. For Sweet Sean's to go back from the internet, Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Portress. Stay super, everybody.
I'm Marty and Evie.